The CSS Defiance drifted through the void like a ghost of wars past, its battle-scarred hull telling stories that most modern captains had only read about in history books. Captain Sarah Chen stood at the viewport of her bridge, watching distant stars glimmer against the endless black. After 28 years of service, the Defiance was considered obsolete by Fleet Command standards, a relic assigned to patrol the quietest sector of human space. Another thrilling day in the back end of nowhere. Lieutenant Marcus Rodriguez sighed from his tactical station, though his hands never stopped moving across the antiquated physical controls. Unlike the neural interfaces and holographic displays of modern vessels, the Defiance still relied on buttons, switches, and mechanical readouts. "Quiet is good," Chen replied, turning to face her bridge crew. Her dark eyes carried the weight of experience, matched by the silver streaks in her close-cropped hair. "Quiet means our colonists are safe." The ship's ancient computer terminal chirped, drawing Chen's attention. Chief Engineer Maya Patel's voice crackled through speakers that had been old when Chen's grandmother was young. "Captain, I need you in engineering. There's something you should see." Chen exchanged glances with Rodriguez before heading to the lift. The Defiance's corridors were a maze of exposed conduits and patched hull plates, each repair marking another story in the ship's long history. Engineering was no different, a cathedral of machinery that belonged in a museum rather than an active warship. Patel stood hunched over a diagnostic terminal, her dark skin illuminated by the glow of vacuum tubes and LED displays. "Look at this," she said without preamble, pointing to a scrolling set of numbers. "I was running standard diagnostics on our targeting systems when I noticed something odd about our electromagnetic signatures." "Odd how?" Chen asked, leaning in to study the readouts. "Our targeting computers are analog. They use physical circuits and magnetic cores instead of quantum processors. They're not just old, they're ancient." But Patel pulled up another screen, this one showing wave patterns. "These patterns shouldn't be possible with our hardware. The magnetic fields are generating quantum interference effects that our sensors shouldn't even be able to detect." Before Chen could respond, the ship's alert system activated. Rodriguez's voice came through the intercom. "Captain to the bridge. We have company." When Chen reached the bridge, the main screen showed a massive vessel emerging from fold space. Its sleek hull gleamed with the distinctive blue-white energy fields of Xylaxian technology. "Xylaxian Dreadnought," Rodriguez reported, his voice tight. "Sunweaver class. They shouldn't be this far into our territory." The Xylaxian Empire had emerged 6 months ago, their quantum-based technology far beyond anything humanity had encountered. Their ships could slice through modern human vessels like paper, their quantum shields rendering most weapons useless. They'd already claimed 3 border systems. "They haven't spotted us yet," Rodriguez continued. "Their sensors are probably dismissing us as space debris. We're not exactly running state-of-the-art equipment." Chen watched the massive ship on the screen, her mind racing. The nearest patrol fleet was hours away. If the Xylaxians were here, it meant only one thing. They were preparing to attack the Morrison colony. 10,000 civilians, with only this obsolete patrol ship standing between them and annihilation. "What are our options?" Chen asked, though she already knew the answer. Fleet Command's standing orders were clear. In the event of encountering superior Xylaxian forces, all ships were to retreat and alert the nearest battle group. "We could try to send a warning," Rodriguez suggested, "but any transmission would give away our position, and even if we managed it, help wouldn't arrive in time." Chen turned to Patel, who had followed her to the bridge. "Those quantum interference patterns you found, could they affect their shields?" Patel's eyes widened as she caught on to the captain's thinking. "Their quantum shields operate on principles similar to our targeting system's magnetic fields. If we could tune the frequencies just right." She trailed off, already running calculations in her head. "How long would you need?" "An hour, maybe 2. But Captain, this is theoretical. Even if it works, we're still just one old patrol ship against a dreadnought. Chen smiled, the kind of smile that had gotten her through 3 wars and countless battles. Then we better make it count. Because right now, we're all those colonists have. The bridge crew stared at their captain, understanding dawning in their eyes. They all knew what she was proposing. To take their ancient, obsolete vessel against one of the most powerful warships ever encountered. It was either brilliant or suicidal, possibly both. Well, Rodriguez said, breaking the tension, they do say old age and treachery beat youth and skill. Get to work, Chen ordered. Maya, you have 1 hour to make our targeting systems sing. Marcus, plot an approach vector that keeps us in the sensor shadows of these debris fields. We're going to show these Ilaxians why you should never underestimate a ship just because it's got a few years on it. As her crew rushed to their stations, Chen returned to the viewport. The Ilaxian dreadnought loomed in the distance, its quantum shields rippling like aurora against the starfield. They thought their technology made them invincible. They'd never faced anything like the Defiance, a ship so old it preceded their quantum advancements, crewed by people who remembered when space warfare wasn't about who had the most advanced AI or the strongest quantum fields, but about courage, skill, and the determination to protect what mattered. Ready or not, Chen whispered to herself, you're about to learn why humanity survived long enough to build those fancy new ships you're so proud of. The ancient engines of the CSS Defiance hummed to life, carrying its crew toward a battle that would either end in glorious victory or noble sacrifice. Either way, they would show the galaxy that sometimes the oldest weapons were the most dangerous, especially in the hands of those who knew how to use them. The hour passed like seconds as the crew of the Defiance prepared for what could be their final battle. In engineering, Maya Patel's fingers danced across ancient circuit boards, making adjustments that would have seemed nonsensical to modern fleet engineers. Beside her, maintenance drones lay dormant, their quantum processors incompatible with the ship's analog systems. How's it coming? Captain Chen's voice carried a hint of tension as she entered engineering. The Ilaxian dreadnought hadn't moved from its position, but they all knew it was only a matter of time before it began its attack run on the colony. I think I've got it, Paddle replied, not looking up from her work. Our targeting system's magnetic cores generate fields that resonate at frequencies similar to their quantum shields. The real breakthrough came when I realized we didn't need to overpower their shields. We just need to create a destructive interference pattern. She pulled up a diagram on one of the old LED screens. See these waveforms? Their quantum shields operate on principles that didn't exist when the Defiance was built. They never designed their defenses to account for old electromagnetic weapons because they didn't think they'd ever face them. Like trying to hack a computer with a sword, Rodriguez's voice came through the intercom. He'd been monitoring their work from the bridge. They're so focused on defending against quantum attacks, they'd left themselves vulnerable to simpler threats. Chen studied the diagram, her expression thoughtful. Will it work? In theory, yes. In practice, Patel shrugged. We won't know until we try. But there's something else. She led Chen to another terminal. While I was modifying the targeting systems, I discovered why our ship was relegated to patrol duty. Look at these maintenance logs. The screen showed repair records dating back decades. Chen's eyes widened as she read. They tried to upgrade the Defiance with modern systems, and failed. Patel finished. Our ship's architecture is too old, too different. What they saw as a limitation might be our greatest advantage. The Ilaxians can't hack our systems because there's nothing for their quantum processors to interface with. We're too primitive. A slow smile spread across Chen's face. Sometimes the old ways are the best ways. How long until? The ship's alert system cut her off. Captain, Rodriguez's voice was urgent. The dreadnought is moving. They're launching fighters. Chen was already moving toward the bridge. Maya, whatever you've done will have to be enough. Battle stations. The Defiance's corridors echoed with the sound of running feet as crew members rushed to their posts. When Chen reached the bridge, The main screen showed a dozen Thylaxian fighters emerging from the dreadnought's launch bays, their quantum drives leaving trails of blue fire against the void. "They're heading for the colony," Rodriguez reported. "Long-range sensors detect transport ships preparing to evacuate, but they'll never clear the system in time." "Bring us about," Chen ordered. "Maya, are the targeting modifications ready?" "As ready as they'll ever be." Patel's voice came through the speakers. "But Captain, even if we can penetrate their shields, we're still massively outgunned." Chen's hands tightened on her command chair. "We don't need to win. We just need to buy those colonists time to escape." She keyed the ship-wide comm. "All hands, this is the captain. I won't lie to you. We're about to engage an enemy that outmatches us in every conventional measure. They have better ships, stronger shields, and more advanced weapons. But we have something they don't: experience. Experience they've never faced because they think it's obsolete." She paused, looking at her bridge crew. Each face showed determination mixed with fear, but not one showed doubt. "They say you can't teach an old dog new tricks. But sometimes the old tricks are exactly what you need." Battle stations. The Defiance's engines roared to life, pushing the ancient ship toward its destiny. On the main screen, the Thylaxian fighters grew larger, their quantum shields shimming with power. Behind them, the massive dreadnought turned ponderously, its weapon systems charging. "Fighter squadron entering weapons range," Rodriguez reported. "They're not even trying to evade. Their sensors must think we're harmless." "Let them think that," Chen said quietly. "Maya, bring the targeting systems online. Marcus, pick your target and fire when ready." The bridge fell silent as Rodriguez lined up his shot. The lead Thylaxian fighter flew straight and level, its pilot clearly unconcerned about the antiquated vessel in their path. The Defiance's electromagnetic targeting system hummed to life, its magnetic cores generating fields that hadn't been used in combat for decades. "Firing," Rodriguez announced. The ship shuddered as its main guns launched their first salvo. The electromagnetically accelerated rounds streaked across space, their magnetic fields tuned to exactly the right frequency. The Thylaxian fighters' quantum shields flared and failed. The rounds tore through the craft like tissue paper, sending it spinning into the void in pieces. "Direct hit," Rodriguez shouted, his voice filled with disbelief and triumph. Their shields, they just collapsed. The remaining fighters broke formation, finally recognizing the threat. But it was too late. The Defiance's guns spoke again and again, each shot guided by targeting systems too old to be affected by quantum interference. 3 more fighters disappeared in balls of plasma before the others could react. "They're transmitting," the communications officer reported. "The dreadnought is ordering all fighters to retreat. They're warning them about primitive weapon signatures." Chen allowed herself a small smile. "Now they notice us. Maya, how are the targeting systems holding up?" "Better than expected," Patel replied. "The magnetic cores are actually becoming more stable as we fire. It's like the old girl remembered what she was built for." But their victory was short-lived. The dreadnought's massive form filled the main screen, its weapon ports glowing with gathered energy. "All hands, brace for impact," Chen ordered. "They won't underestimate us twice." The real battle was about to begin, and the crew of the Defiance was about to learn if their rediscovered advantage would be enough against the full might of its Thylaxian dreadnought. But they had already proven one thing. Sometimes the most dangerous weapon was the one your enemy thought too obsolete to fear. The Thylaxian dreadnought's first salvo lit up space like an artificial sun. Captain Chen watched through the Defiance's viewport as the massive energy beam approached, knowing their outdated shields wouldn't stand a chance against such firepower. "Hard to port," she ordered. "Maya, divert all non-essential power to the engines." The Defiance's ancient drives screamed in protest as the ship lurched sideways, barely avoiding the devastating beam. The energy discharge passed so close it left scorch marks along the vessel's starboard hull. Multiple weapon locks, Rodriguez reported from Tactical. They're charging all battery banks. Chen's mind raced. The Dreadnought's quantum weapons could tear them apart with a single direct hit, but their success against the fighters had proven their theory correct. The Defiance's electromagnetic weapons could penetrate Xylaxian shields. The question was how to get close enough to use them. Status of the colony evacuation, she demanded. First wave of transports is away, communications reported. But they need at least 20 more minutes to get the remaining civilians to the ships. 20 minutes. They had to hold off a dreadnought for 20 minutes with a ship that belonged in a museum. Chen studied the tactical display, noting how the massive Xylaxian vessel moved. It was beautiful, powerful, and predictable. Maya, remember those old submarine warfare holovids you like watching? The ones about Earth's ancient naval battles? Yes. Patel's voice carried a note of understanding. Captain, are you thinking what I think you're thinking? Their quantum sensors are designed to detect energy signatures, Chen said. Marcus, kill all non-essential systems. Maya, I want you to power down everything except life support and minimal maneuvering thrusters. Make us look dead. The bridge lights dimmed as systems went dark. The usual hum of the ship's engines faded to silence. On the tactical display, the dreadnought continued its approach, its weapons charged and ready. They're scanning us, Rodriguez whispered, reading minimal power signatures. They think they've crippled us. Wait for it, Chen ordered, watching the massive ship draw closer. The Xylaxians were cautious now, having learned the Defiance could hurt them, but their arrogance was still their weakness. They wouldn't believe an inferior ship could pose a real threat. The dreadnought moved into position above them, preparing to finish off what they thought was a dying vessel. Chen could almost imagine their commander's satisfaction at defeating the primitive human ship that had dared to challenge them. Now, Chen shouted, full power to engines. Maya, give us everything she's got. The Defiance roared back to life, its engines igniting with sudden fury. The ship shot upward, straight toward the dreadnought's belly where its quantum shields were weakest. The Xylaxians reacted, but their massive ship was too slow to evade. Multiple targeting solutions. Rodriguez called out. Electromagnetic cannons charged and ready. Fire everything. The Defiance's guns spoke as one, sending magnetically accelerated rounds straight into the dreadnought's vulnerable underside. The quantum shields flickered and failed as the specially tuned projectiles created chaos in their frequency patterns. Impacts rippled along the massive ship's hull, tearing through armor and systems designed to resist energy weapons, but helpless against simple kinetic force. Direct hits, Rodriguez reported jubilantly, reading multiple hull breaches and power fluctuations. Their main weapon systems are offline. But the dreadnought wasn't finished. Secondary weapons opened up, filling space with a deadly network of energy beams. The Defiance twisted and turned, its experienced crew pushing the old ship to its limits, but they couldn't dodge everything. Hull breach on Deck 3, damage control reported. Emergency containment holding. Chen gripped her command chair as another blast rocked the ship. Maya, status of the targeting systems. The magnetic cores are overheating, Patel replied. We can't maintain this level of fire for long. A new alert sounded, and Rodriguez's voice turned grim. Captain, detecting multiple fold space signatures. They're calling for reinforcements. Chen checked the colony evacuation status. Still 10 minutes needed for the last transports to clear the system. They had to hold on, had to give those civilians their chance to escape. But against multiple Xylaxian warships, new contacts emerging from fold space, Rodriguez announced. But his next words carried surprise rather than dread. They're ours. 3 Terran destroyers, Marathon class. The communications panel lit up with an incoming transmission. CS Defiance, this is Captain Wei of the Marathon. Looks like you could use some help. Chen allowed herself a small smile. Your timing is impeccable, Marathon. But your quantum weapons won't be effective against their shields. We noticed, White replied. That's why we brought these. The tactical display showed the Marathon and her sister ships launching what looked like ancient missile pods. Found these beauties in the museum section of the orbital shipyards. Sometimes, the old ways are the best ways. The Xylaxian dreadnought found itself caught between the Defiance's electromagnetic cannons and a barrage of primitive but deadly missiles. Its quantum shields, optimized to stop energy weapons, proved useless against the combined assault of human ingenuity and determination. Enemy vessel is powering down, Rodriguez reported with satisfaction. Their remaining systems are going into shutdown. They're surrendering, Captain. The bridge crew erupted in cheers, but Chen kept her eyes on the tactical display. The colony transports were almost away, and for the first time in months, a Xylaxian warship had been defeated. But she knew this was just the beginning. Send word to Fleet Command, she ordered. Tell them we found a way to fight back. And tell them. She looked around at her proud crew, at the old ship that had proven its worth. Tell them sometimes victory doesn't require the newest technology. Sometimes it just takes remembering what we learned a long time ago. The Defiance's ancient engines hummed steadily as the ship moved to escort the remaining civilian transports to safety. They had won this battle, but Chen knew the war was far from over. The Xylaxians would adapt, would try to counter this new threat. But humanity had remembered something important today. That true strength didn't come from advanced technology, but from the courage and determination of those willing to fight against impossible odds. 1 week after the Battle of Morrison Colony, the CSS Defiance sat in orbital dock above Terra Nova, its battle-scarred hull a testament to its recent victory. Captain Chen stood in Fleet Command's Strategic Operations Center, facing a panel of admirals who seemed more interested in their holographic displays than her report. Let me understand this, Admiral Harrison said, his weathered face creased with skepticism. You're suggesting we deliberately downgrade our fleet's weapons, replace quantum cannons with electromagnetic guns. He shook his head. Captain, one lucky victory doesn't change the fact that we're fighting a technologically superior enemy. That's exactly my point, sir, Chen replied, keeping her voice steady. We're trying to beat the Xylaxians at their own game, and it's not working. But Chief Engineer Patel's analysis of the battle data proves that older technology can bypass their quantum defenses. She gestured to the holographic display showing the Defiance's battle record. The Xylaxians built their defensive systems to counter modern weapons. They never considered that someone might attack them with primitive technology because they assumed newer always meant better. Maya Patel stepped forward, pulling up detailed scans of the captured dreadnought. Their quantum shields operate on principles that make them nearly invulnerable to energy weapons, she explained. But they're vulnerable to specifically tuned electromagnetic frequencies, frequencies that our older ships naturally generate. And what happens when they adapt? Another admiral asked. They'll modify their shields once they understand the threat. They already are, Chen acknowledged. But that's where we have another advantage. Their entire technological base is built around quantum systems. To effectively counter our older weapons, they'd need to completely redesign their ships from the ground up. It would take them years. The room fell silent as the admirals considered this. Finally, Admiral Harrison spoke again. What exactly are you proposing, Captain? Chen straightened. Operation Legacy, sir. We have dozens of older ships mothballed in yards across human space. Ships the Xylaxians would consider obsolete, with minimal reactivation time, and Chief Patel's modifications, we could have a fleet they're not prepared to fight. Those ships were decommissioned for a reason, Harrison countered. They're slower, less maneuverable, and lack modern tactical systems. But they're sturdy, Patel interjected. Built to take punishment our modern ships can't handle, and their analog systems are immune to quantum-based cyberattacks. The Xylaxians can't hack what they can't interface with. Before the admirals could respond, the room's emergency alert system activated. A tactical officer burst in, his face pale. Sirs, we're detecting multiple fold space ruptures across 3 sectors. It's the Xylaxians. They're launching a major offensive. The strategic display lit up with dozens of enemy signatures. Xylaxian warships were emerging throughout human space, their quantum drives tearing holes in reality itself. But something was different about these ships. They've modified their shield configurations, Paddle said, studying the readings. Trying to counter our electromagnetic weapons. But look, they had to reduce their quantum shield strength to do it. Their protection against modern weapons is weakened. Chen's mind raced with the implications. They're vulnerable now, caught between trying to defend against both old and new technology. This is our chance. Admiral Harrison stared at the tactical display, watching as human fleet assets scrambled to respond to the sudden assault. His expression hardened into determination. How quickly can you reactivate those mothballed ships, Captain? The first wave could be ready in 48 hours, Chen replied. We've already begun preliminary work on the CSS Defiance's sister ships. Harrison nodded. You have 24. Get every ship you can operational. And Captain. He turned to face her fully. I'm promoting you to Commodore. You'll lead this new legacy fleet personally. Chen's eyes widened. Sir, I should stay with the Defiance. Your crew can handle her. Harrison cut her off. We need someone who understands both the old and new ways to coordinate this operation. Someone who's proven they can think beyond conventional tactics. As if to emphasize the Admiral's point, new alerts sounded throughout the command center. The Xylaxian advance was pushing deeper into human space, their modified ships meeting heavy resistance but still advancing. They thought they had adapted to humanity's primitive weapons, but they were about to learn another lesson about underestimating their opponents. Lieutenant Rodriguez, Chen called over the command center's comm system to her tactical officer. Begin downloading the Defiance's combat data to all reactivated vessels. I want every ship to have our targeting solutions and shield frequency analysis. Already on it, sir, Rodriguez replied. Chief Patel, has the engineering crews working around the clock. You should see some of the modifications they're making. These old ships might not be pretty, but they're going to pack one hell of a punch. Chen turned back to the admirals. Request permission to begin Operation Legacy immediately. The Xylaxians think they've countered our advantage, but all they've done is make themselves vulnerable in new ways. It's time to show them that humanity didn't survive this long by relying solely on technological superiority. Harrison nodded. Permission granted. Commodore, remind these arrogant bastards why humanity's old warships were retired to mothballs rather than scrapped. They're about to learn that some weapons age like fine wine. They only get more dangerous with time. As Chen left the command center, her mind was already racing with plans. The Xylaxians had launched their offensive expecting to face desperate human resistance. Instead, they were about to encounter something far more dangerous, a fleet of vessels they had dismissed as obsolete, crewed by veterans who remembered when space warfare wasn't about who had the most advanced technology, but about courage, skill, and the determination to protect what mattered. The void above New Terra blazed with the light of battle. Commodore Chen stood on the bridge of her flagship, the newly recommissioned CSS Intrepid, watching as history unfolded before her. Dozens of reactivated vessels, their hulls still bearing the scars of old wars, moved into formation alongside modern warships. The legacy fleet, as it had come to be known, was about to face its greatest test. Xylaxian fleet approaching Fold Space exit point. Rodriguez reported from his position as Fleet Tactical Coordinator, reading over 200 vessels, including at least 20 dreadnoughts. Chen nodded, studying the tactical display. The Xylaxians had gathered their largest battle group yet, determined to crush the human resistance that had dared to challenge their technological superiority. Their ships had been modified, their quantum shields reconfigured to resist both old and new weapons, but those modifications had come at a cost. All ships, battle formations, Chen ordered, her voice carrying across the fleet command channel. Modern vessels, maintain distance, and engage with quantum weapons. Legacy ships prepare for close assault. Remember your training. They may have adapted, but so have we. The Thylaxian fleet emerged from fold space in a dazzling display of quantum energy, their modified shields shimming with both traditional quantum barriers and new electromagnetic countermeasures. Their commander's voice boomed across all frequencies, translated by AI systems. Human forces, your primitive tactics have delayed the inevitable, but they cannot save you. Surrender now, and we will show mercy. Chen allowed herself a small smile. Maya, are you reading what I'm reading? Yes, Commodore. Patel's voice came through clear and confident from her position as Fleet Engineering Coordinator. Their shield modifications are causing power fluctuations exactly where we predicted. They had to sacrifice quantum stability to protect against electromagnetic weapons. All ships, execute Battle Plan Omega, Chen ordered. Show them what humanity's primitive tactics can really do. The Legacy fleet moved with practiced precision, decades-old vessels accelerating alongside their modern counterparts. The Thylaxians fired first, their quantum weapons lighting up space with deadly energy. But Chen's fleet was ready. Modern human ships engaged from long range, their quantum cannons forcing the Thylaxians to maintain their modified shields at full power. Meanwhile, the Legacy vessels closed in, their electromagnetic weapons carefully tuned to exploit the weaknesses created by the enemy's defensive compromises. First wave, engage. Chen commanded. The CSS Defiance, now under Captain Rodriguez's direct command, led the charge. Its electromagnetic cannons fired in perfect synchronization with dozens of its sister ships, their antiquated weapons proving devastatingly effective against the Thylaxians' compromised defenses. Multiple direct hits, Rodriguez reported jubilantly. Their shield modifications are failing under combined quantum and electromagnetic assault. They didn't expect us to coordinate old and new technology so effectively. The Thylaxian fleet's perfect formation began to break apart as ship after ship discovered that their defensive adaptations weren't enough. They had prepared to face either modern weapons or primitive ones, but not both simultaneously. They're trying to remodulate their shields, Patel warned, attempting to find a balance between quantum and electromagnetic defense. They won't find one, Chen replied confidently. You can't serve two masters. Push the advantage. All ships, execute attack pattern Delta 7. The Legacy fleet split into smaller battle groups, each combining old and new vessels in lethal harmony. Modern ships would breach the enemy's electromagnetic defenses, creating openings for the older vessels to exploit with their ballistic weapons. The Thylaxians found themselves caught in a deadly crossfire, unable to effectively defend against both types of attack. Commodore. The sensor officer's voice carried urgent warning. 5 Thylaxian dreadnoughts breaking formation. They're making a run for New Terra's orbital stations. Chen had anticipated this. Task Force Bravo, move to intercept. Show them why we kept those old missile cruisers in service. A group of vessels that looked ancient even compared to the Legacy fleet moved to cut off the dreadnoughts. These ships, pulled from the deepest storage of humanity's mothball yards, carried weapons so old they predated energy shields entirely, massive batteries of nuclear-tipped space torpedoes. The Thylaxian dreadnoughts, their defenses optimized for modern warfare, found themselves facing weapons their sensors could barely detect. The resulting explosion temporarily blinded every optical sensor in the battle zone. Enemy fleet is breaking up, Rodriguez reported with satisfaction. They're attempting to retreat to fold space. Not this time, Chen ordered. All ships, execute final attack pattern. Let's end this here and now. The entire Legacy fleet moved as one, old and new ships working in perfect concert. Modern vessels struck from range with quantum weapons while their elderly cousins closed to point-blank range, electromagnetic cannons, and ballistic weapons tearing through compromised shields. The Thylaxian commander's voice came through again, but this time it carried a note of desperation. How? How are you defeating our superior technology? Because technology isn't everything, Chen replied calmly. You forgot the most important lesson of warfare. Never underestimate your enemy, especially when that enemy has centuries of combat experience to draw upon. The battle lasted another 20 minutes, but the outcome was never in doubt. When the last Zylaxian vessel either surrendered or retreated, the Legacy fleet held position above New Terra, old and new ships side by side in victory formation. Damage report, Chen requested. Minimal casualties, Rodriguez reported. The old ships proved harder to kill than anyone expected. Built to take a beating, just like you said. Chen looked out at her fleet, at the mix of modern vessels with their quantum drives and ancient warships with their sturdy armor. Each had played its part, each had proven its worth. The Zylaxians had learned a costly lesson about the danger of relying too heavily on technological superiority. Send word to Fleet Command, she ordered. The Legacy fleet stands ready to begin the counteroffensive. And add a personal note. Sometimes the best way to face the future is to remember the lessons of the past. As celebration erupted across the fleet, Chen thought about how this victory had started, with one old ship that everyone had dismissed as obsolete. The CSS Defiance had lived up to its name, defying not just the enemy but the assumptions of its own people. It had reminded humanity that true strength wasn't about having the newest technology, but about having the wisdom to use every tool at your disposal. The Legacy fleet moved into parade formation, preparing to escort the captured Zylaxian vessels to secure docks. They had won this battle, but Chen knew the war wasn't over. The Zylaxians would try to adapt again, would attempt to find new ways to counter both old and new human weapons. But they would find humanity ready, armed with both the latest technology and the accumulated wisdom of centuries of space warfare. Sometimes the old ways were the best ways, not because they were inherently superior, but because they had stood the test of time. The Zylaxians had learned this lesson the hard way, and humanity had remembered something it had nearly forgotten. That progress wasn't about discarding the past, but about building upon it.